Picture this: June 1993. An English countryside manor that's been in the same family for 400 years. A 73-year-old retired colonel sits at his mahogany desk staring at a letter from Lloyds of London. The number at the bottom doesn't make sense. It can't be real. £3 million. That's what they want from him. Not what he invested, not what he lost, what he owes. He walks upstairs, pulls out his service revolver from the Falklands War, and ends his life rather than watching his family lose everything. He wasn't alone. That summer, at least 7 Lloyds names took their own lives. Hundreds more lost ancestral homes. Thousands faced bankruptcy. All because they joined what they thought was the world's safest, most prestigious investment club. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of how 34,000 wealthy individuals, doctors, farmers, aristocrats, professionals, lost £8 billion in the greatest insurance disaster in history. More importantly, I'm going to show you why this 300-year-old catastrophe is playing out again right now, just with different names on the door. Welcome to another episode of the Timeless Investor Show. I'm Ari Van Gemeren, real estate fund manager, student of history, and your guide through the patterns that keep destroying wealth across centuries. Let me take you back to where it all started. One of the most fabled names in insurance history, 1688, a London coffee house owned by a guy named Edward Lloyd. Now, coffee houses in 1688 London were not Starbucks. They were where business happened. Arguably, maybe Starbucks, some business happens there too. Stock jobbers had their coffee house. Merchants had theirs. And Edward Lloyd, his place became ground zero for marine insurance. Here's how it worked. A ship owner walks in. He needs insurance for a voyage to the Indies. He writes the details on a slip of paper. The ship, the cargo, the route, the premium he's willing to pay. Then he walks around the coffee house, and wealthy merchants sign their names under the terms, each taking a portion of the risk. They literally underwrote the slip. That's where the term comes from, underwriting. For 300 years, this system worked brilliantly. Lloyds of London became the place to insure anything unusual. The Titanic? Insured at Lloyds. Betty Grable's legs? Lloyds. Keith Richards' fingers? You guessed it, Lloyds. But here's the key to understanding what was coming next. Lloyd's wasn't an insurance company in the typical sense. It was a marketplace, and the actual risk takers were not corporations with limited liability. They were individuals called names, capital N, who pledged their entire personal net worth to back these policies. Let me say that again so it sinks in. These people didn't invest money. They pledged everything they owned as collateral for insurance policies. Their houses, their savings, their children's inheritance, their stamp collections, everything. And for about 280 years, it was essentially free money. Think about it from their perspective, or maybe some of the listeners were around in this time and knew names, right? So maybe you know their perspective directly. You're a wealthy Brit in the 1970s. Lloyd's approaches you at the country club. They say, join our syndicate. You'll need to show assets of at least £100,000. You don't put up any cash. We just need your signature pledging your assets as backing. In return, you'll get a check every year, usually about 10% of your pledged assets, for doing absolutely nothing. Free money for being rich. What could go wrong? I'll tell you what went wrong. 3 letters. APH. Asbestos, pollution, and health hazards. See, here's what the working names at Lloyd's, the professionals who actually ran the syndicates, knew that the external names didn't. Starting in the 1940s, American companies have been spraying asbestos on everything. Ships, buildings, pipes, brake pads. It was the miracle fireproof material. And Lloyd's had been insuring these companies, writing general liability policies that covered all risks. Policies that never expired. Policies with no caps on liability. So by the early 1980s, the insiders at Lloyd's could see what was coming. Thousands, maybe millions of asbestos claims from American workers, each one potentially worth millions. The liability was literally incalculable. So what did they do? They recruited more names. Between 1980 and 1988, Lloyd's membership grew from 7,000 to 34,000. They lowered the asset requirements. They actively recruited abroad, Americans, Canadians, anyone with money. They especially targeted what they called adventurous widows, women who'd inherited wealth but didn't understand insurance. One Lloyd's executive later admitted in court, we needed more capacity to spread the risk. Translation, we needed more suckers to take the hit. They created what's now known as the LMX Spiral, London Market Excess of Loss. Basically, syndicates started reinsuring each other in a circle. Syndicate A insured Syndicate B, who insured Syndicate C, who insured Syndicate A, round and round, creating the illusion of coverage while concentrating the risk. It was financial incest, and when one syndicate failed, they all would. So the first cracks appeared in 1988. The Piper Alpha oil platform exploded in the North Sea, 167 dead, 1.7 million pounds in claims. Then Hurricane Hugo hit, then the Exxon Valdez, then the San Francisco earthquake. But those were just the aperitif. The main course was asbestos. See, asbestos doesn't kill you quickly. It takes 20, 30, 40 years. A worker exposed in 1950 might not get sick until 1990, and when they did, their lawyers didn't just sue their employer. They sued everyone. The asbestos manufacturer, the company that installed it, the building owner, and here's the kicker, all their insurers going back decades. Lloyd's had insured them all. By 1990, the claims were a tsunami. Johns Manville, the biggest asbestos company, alone generated billions in claims. Each workers' comp claim triggered multiple insurance claims across multiple years. Lloyd's was on the hook for all of it. So the names started getting cash calls, not dividend checks, bills. Imagine this. You're a dentist in Ohio. You joined Lloyd's in 1985 because your golf buddy said it was free money. You pledged your house and retirement savings as backings. It's good. It's good, Dr. So-and-so. They've been doing it for 280 years. So for 5 years, you get nice checks. You feel smart, 20, 30,000 a year. Life is good. Free cash flow, passive exposure. You love it. Then in 1991, you get a letter. You owe 500,000 pounds, due in 30 days. If you don't pay, Lloyd's will seize everything you own. So you call Lloyd's. You explain you're a member of Syndicate 418, which reinsured Syndicate 553, which had exposure to American asbestos claims from the 1950s. Policies written before you were born. Maybe not all of you, some of you. Risks you did not know even existed, but you signed the contract. Unlimited liability, no caps, no escape. The stories from this period are heartbreaking. A farmer in Devon who'd been a name for 20 years. His family had farmed the same land since the 1600s, got a call for 2 million pounds. He had to sell everything, the farm, the house, the livestock. 400 years of family history gone. A widow in Scotland whose husband had been a name. She knew nothing about it until Lloyd's came for her house. Under English law, she'd inherited his Lloyd's obligations along with his assets. A Canadian doctor who lost his practice, his home, and his marriage. His wife divorced him rather than have her assets seized as well. The phrase they all used was the same. We thought Lloyd's was the Bank of England. We thought it was safe. But here's where it gets really dark. In 1982, Lloyd's changed their accounting rules. They moved from a 3-year accounting period to a 2-year period. Seems technical, right? Wrong. This means that syndicates could close their books and distribute profits before long-tail claims like asbestos showed up. So the insiders took their money and ran, leaving external names holding the toxic waste. Court documents later showed that senior Lloyd's underwriters were warning about asbestos liability as early as 1979. One memo literally said, the asbestos claims could bankrupt Lloyd's. Their solution? Recruit more names to dilute the exposure. By 1992, the situation was apocalyptic. Names were losing their homes at a rate of several per week. The suicide rate among names was 8 times the national average. Parliament was in uproar. Lloyd's, this 300-year-old institution that had survived the Great Fire of London, the Napoleonic Wars, 2 world wars, was weeks from collapse. Then came the Reconstruction and Renewal Plan. Lloyd's created a new company called Equitas and transferred all the pre-1993 liabilities into it. Names could pay a final settlement, usually about 30% of their outstanding obligations, and be released from future claims. But where did that money come from? New names, new corporate capital. The same Lloyds that had just destroyed 34,000 individuals started recruiting fresh investors. And you know what? It worked. Lloyd's today is more profitable than ever. They made £3.5 billion in profit last year. The building at 1 Lime Street is worth over £1 billion. But the names, most never recovered. There's literally a support group called Lloyd's Names Action Group that still meets. Average age, 85. They sit in church halls in Sussex, drinking tea, talking about the homes they lost, the children who won't speak to them, the retirements that became nightmares. One of them said last year, "We were the sacrifice that saved Lloyd's." Now you're probably thinking, Ari, this is tragic, truly tragic, but it's ancient history. This was 30 years ago. We've learned. We have regulations now. Have we? Let me tell you what I'm seeing in the markets right now. The Lloyd's pattern, exclusive access, asymmetric information, and hidden tail risk, it's everywhere. Take syndicated real estate deals, for example. My business. Yes, LPs have limited liability. That's the whole point of being a limited partner. You are not on the hook for everything. But here's what Lloyd's teaches us. The real risk isn't always in the structure. It's in what you don't know that you don't know. The most dangerous kind of not knowing. I see syndicators raising money for deals with 3-year interest-only loans with a balloon payment. That was very common practice in 2020, 2021. Don't worry, we'll refinance before them. I said the same, by the way. I mean, it was groupthink writ large in the industry. That's tail risk. That's a claim waiting to hit you and mature, and it's going to be a problem. And we're seeing it now with capital calls to LPs, right? Your position is wiped out, close to wiped out. You need to put more money in. I see fund-to-fund structures where you're 3 layers removed from the actual asset. I see general partners in my business raising pref equity funds to bail out their own deals, right? So they raise a fund, they're collecting more fees, they're putting more money in on top of bad money to protect deals that are not performing well, but they're still getting paid. I'll say we, I'm not doing it, but the royal we are still getting paid, right? Each layer adds complexity, but no one really knows the total risk exposure. That is, in some ways, the LMX spiral with a modern paint job, to look at it that way. But here's the really insidious parallel, the most important parallel of everything, the social proof trap. Lloyd's worked because it was exclusive. You had to be invited. You had to show wealth. It was a club. Today, we have accredited investor requirements. We have minimum investments of $250K, $500K, $1 million. It feels good to be part of a prestigious club of wealthy individuals that gets access to something really cool that the regular working man doesn't have access to. A lot of sponsors, industry contacts, big Wall Street institutions have conferences at 5-star resorts where you network with other sophisticated investors, pushing the same social proof trap. The message is the same. You are special. You're smart enough to be here. Everyone else in this room is doing it. You're part of a really unique club. That's how Lloyd's got doctors from Ohio to pledge their house for marine insurance risk they couldn't find on a map. The information asymmetry is just as bad, writ large, in alternative investments. I'm going to focus on real estate because it's my space, but it's rinse and repeat on every kind of alternative asset. The general partner knows the property management company. They know the property well. They know the renovation budget might be optimistic. They know the market study is 2 years old, but you get a deck with stock photos and hockey stick projections coming out. You don't have the information that the general partner has. Every alternative investment functions this way. Someone pitches you on a really, somebody mentioned to me years ago a fund that was investing in life insurance contracts. What business do you or I have investing in a life insurance investment fund? Do we understand what's actually going on, or do we just see the rosy projections and think that's great? Think about something you know really, really, really well, like the back of your hand. That is what alternative investments are. The partners that are pushing the deals, myself included, understand the assets extremely well. You likely don't. You likely don't know all the risks that are embedded in what you're doing. Or look at the insurance market. We're seeing carriers pull out of entire states. Florida, California are becoming uninsurable right now. What happens when you own a property that literally cannot get insurance? That is not a risk anybody modeled in 2021. The environmental liability angle is even scarier. You buy into a syndication that owns former industrial properties. 20 years later, they find contamination. The EPA doesn't care about your LLC structure. They'll pierce right through to find deep pockets. That's your asbestos claim waiting to happen. Here's another parallel, the recruitment pattern. When Lloyds needed fresh capital to pay old claims, they loosened standards and they recruited aggressively. What are we seeing today? Syndication minimums are dropping. Crowdfunding platforms are letting you in for 10K. Regulation A offerings are marketed to non-accredited investors. The US government is actively working to lower the barriers to allow private investors into big club deals. Private credit is a big one, right? Private credit, I've talked about this before. Private credit is coming. Everybody wants you to invest in private credit. Low risk, no risk, high return, collateralized by great businesses. What can you lose? A lot, it turns out. When the barriers drop and marketing ramps up, you have to ask yourself, are they expanding access to me out of the generosity of their heart, or do they need fresh capital to keep the game going? Even in traditional investing, we see the same pattern. SPACs, which to my credit, I thought were completely whack at the time, but SPACs were sold as smart money following billionaires. Crypto yield farming promised 20% plus returns with no risk. Private credit, as I mentioned, offering 12% years yields on senior secured loans. No risk, they say, no risk. When someone offers you returns without adequately explaining the risk, you're not an investor. You are the exit liquidity. And whenever any of my investors ask me, what is the risk in your deal? I say the risk is you lose all of your money. That's the risk. What's the worst case scenario? You lose all of your money. Acknowledge that upfront. Understand that, right? The stock market gets a lot of pros and cons, but it's hard to lose all of your money in the stock market. It's also hard to lose all of your money with no debt real estate. But understand the risks. The Lloyd's disaster wasn't about insurance. Never is, guys. It's about human nature, about the eternal dance between those who know and those who trust, between complexity and simplicity, and the obscuration of the facts for investors that are trying to get into these kind of deals. It is human nature, and the wheel will turn ever onwards, guys. This will never stop because people will always seek social proof and to invest in a place where their greed takes hold and they want that excessive return. You know what Lloyd's really taught me, and this story taught me? Three things. First, unlimited liability is everywhere. It's just hidden. Maybe not legal liability, but financial, reputational, opportunity cost liability. Every deal you don't fully understand has potentially unlimited downside. Second, when everyone's doing it, nobody's thinking about it. The best time to worry is when no one else is. In 2021, it was a no-brainer to invest in Sunbelt multifamily real estate. It was great. The thesis was good. Everybody was doing it. Many of those investors have lost their entire investment in those deals. Third, the house always survives, most of the time. Lloyd's is still here. The syndicators will start new funds. The platforms will pivot to the next product. The question is, will you survive? The pattern here is timeless. Complexity, hiding risk. Exclusivity, replacing diligence. Social proof, overriding analysis. And when it all unwinds, the institution will survive by sacrificing the participants. It happened with Lloyd's. It happened with mortgage-backed securities. It's happening right now, somewhere, somehow in our ecosystem with something that looks completely legitimate on the surface. The question is, do you really understand what you own? Not what returns it promises, but what risks are you taking? Not what the investment pitch deck says, but what the documents say. Not what everyone else is doing, but what you can afford to lose. Because here's the brutal truth. In every financial disaster, there are two groups of people, those who saw it coming and those who paid for it. The Lloyd's names paid with everything they had. Homes held for centuries, retirement saved for decades, dignity, marriages, lives. Lloyd's itself, they're doing better than ever. The building still stands, the market still operates, the machine keeps running. It just runs on different fuel now. Corporate capital instead of personal pledges, limited liability instead of unlimited, professional risk management instead of amateur speculation. They learned their lesson, and it's good. The risk has been minimized. The question is, have we, humanity, the royal we, learned ours? Every time I look at a deal now, I think about the names, not because I feel sorry for them, though I do, but because they're a reminder that reputation isn't due diligence. And there are many firms today that are riding on their reputation rather than anything else, right? And we talked about it with Over and Gurney. We've talked about it with many different examples on this show, and we will continue to talk about it because the one unchanging constant in human history is humans. We are the unchanging constant. The prestige of the firm you invest in is not protection. If you don't understand the worst case scenario, you should not be in the deal. Said differently, if you cannot survive the worst case scenario, don't do the deal. Just pass, like hard pass. Don't do it. The Lloyd's disaster was not insurance. It was about human nature, greed, trust, social proof, and the eternal dance between insiders and outsiders. That dance is still happening. In real estate, we're all the same as the Lloyd's names in one way or another. We're all pledging capital based on incomplete information. Even partners that are investing in the deal do not have perfect information. I've been on many, inspections of properties. They don't catch everything. There are definitely risks embedded in deals that nobody is aware of that could come out later. We're all trusting others to manage risks we don't fully understand. The difference is whether we know it or not, whether we're honest about it or not, and whether we're prepared for the call that says you owe something. Because it's coming. Maybe not today, maybe not this cycle, but sometime somewhere there will be a letter that doesn't make sense, a number that can't be real, a liability nobody saw coming. When it happens, will you be the one writing the check, or will you be the one who saw it coming? The Lloyd's names didn't have a choice. They thought they were joining a club. They joined a sacrifice. But you have a choice. Every deal you don't fully understand, pass on or ask questions. Ask deeper questions. Ask. Do your diligence. Choose wisely. Choose wisely. That is our show for today. If this story hits you as hard as it hit me, share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's about to sign something they don't understand, someone who thinks prestige equals protection. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment if you found something insightful on this. If you knew a name, if you have some thoughts on this period of history, I would love to hear from you. I respond to all the comments and the insightful feedback that the Timeless Investor community provides on this channel. But I'm going to keep repeating these patterns, these historical patterns, until I'm blue in the face over and over, because there's so many of them. Until then, remember, the most expensive words in investing aren't "this time is different," although that is a very expensive phrase. The most expensive one is "everyone else is doing it." Think well, act wisely, build something timeless. This is Ari Van Gemeren, the host of the Timeless Investor Show, signing off. Thank you for being here.